I'll never forget the moment I realized my marriage was a lie. It was a Tuesday morning, 3 years into what I thought was a fairy tale. I was making breakfast in our penthouse apartment, overlooking the Han River, humming along to some K-pop song, when Jin-woo's phone buzzed on the marble counter. The screen lit up with a message in Korean. I'd been learning the language, but I was still slow at reading it. What I could make out made my blood run cold. The shipment arrives tonight. Make sure your wife doesn't ask questions. My hands trembled as I set down the spatula. Jin-woo emerged from our bedroom, looking like he'd stepped out of a magazine. Perfectly tailored suit, hair styled just so. That smile that had made me fall in love with him 4 years ago, when I was just a grad student, studying abroad. Morning. Beautiful, he said in that smooth voice, reaching for his phone. I stepped back. What shipment? His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes, something cold and calculating that I'd never seen before, or maybe I had, and I'd just been too in love to recognize it. It's just business, Amara. Nothing for you to worry about. What kind of business? The kind that pays for this apartment, for your tuition, for everything you've ever wanted. He pocketed his phone and moved closer, his hand reaching for my face. I flinched. That flicker became a flash of irritation. Don't be dramatic. Tell me the truth, Jinwoo. What do you really do? He studied me for a long moment, then smiled, but it wasn't the smile I'd fallen in love with. This one was sharp, dangerous. I run the largest criminal organization in Seoul. I've killed people, Amara. I've ordered deaths. I've built an empire on blood and fear. He said it so casually, like he was telling me his coffee order. But you knew that, didn't you? Deep down. I had. God help me. I had suspected. The late-night meetings, the men in suits who followed him everywhere, the way people looked at him, with a mixture of respect and terror. I'd just been too desperate for the fairy tale to admit the truth. I want a divorce. Jin-woo laughed. Actually laughed. No, you don't get to leave me, Amara. You're my wife, you belong to me, and if you try to run, if you try to expose me, I'll destroy you so completely, that no one will even remember your name. That was the day I learned that the man I loved was a monster, and that was the day I decided to fight back. Getting a divorce from a Korean mafia boss, when you're a Black American woman with no family, no connections, and no money of your own. Yeah, that's about as easy as it sounds. The first 3 lawyers I consulted took one look at Jin-woo's name and practically threw me out of their offices. The fourth at least had the decency to explain, Mrs. Kang, your husband controls half the judges in Seoul. He has unlimited resources. And forgive me for being blunt, but you're a foreigner. The courts aren't exactly going to side with you over a prominent Korean businessman. He's not a businessman, he's a criminal. The lawyer's expression turned pitying. Can you prove it? Because without evidence, you're just a bitter wife making accusations. You'll lose everything. Your visa, your reputation, possibly your life. My advice? Take whatever settlement he offers and disappear. But I couldn't do that. Not anymore. Because 2 weeks after that conversation, I found out I was pregnant. I sat in that tiny bathroom, staring at the positive test, and felt something shift inside me. This wasn't just about me anymore. I couldn't bring a child into Jin-woo's world, a world of violence and corruption and death. I couldn't let my baby grow up thinking that was normal, that love looked like control and fear. So I did something crazy. I went to the law library at Seoul National University and started reading corporate law, criminal law, family law, international law. I read everything I could find about divorce proceedings in South Korea. I studied cases, precedents, loopholes. I learned about the Korean legal system's weaknesses, about how foreign spouses had successfully argued their cases, about every single technicality that might give me an advantage. My Korean got better out of sheer necessity. I couldn't afford to miss a single word, a single nuance. 3 months of preparation, 3 months of pretending everything was fine while Jin-woo came home smelling like expensive whiskey and other women's perfume. 3 months of hiding my growing belly under loose clothes, terrified he'd find out and use our child as leverage. Then I filed the papers myself, hand-delivered them to the Seoul family court on a rainy Monday morning. The clerk looked at me like I was insane when I said I'd be representing myself. "Ma'am, are you sure? Your husband has. I know exactly who my husband has. File the papers." Jin Woo called me 30 minutes later, his voice vibrating with rage. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life." "No," I said, my hand resting on my still flat stomach. "Marrying you was my biggest mistake. This is me fixing it." The courtroom was everything I'd imagined, and worse. On one side sat Jin Woo with his army of lawyers. 6 of them, all in identical expensive suits, with briefcases that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. They looked like a corporate hit squad, which I suppose they were. On the other side sat me. Just me. A 28-year-old black woman in a modest dress from the market, my natural hair pulled back in a simple bun, holding a battered folder full of handwritten notes and printed statutes. The gallery was packed. Word had spread somehow. Maybe Jin Woo had wanted an audience for my humiliation. I recognized some faces from the Korean underworld, men in sharp suits with dead eyes. Others were clearly reporters, cameras ready, hungry for the spectacle. When the judge entered, Judge Park, a stern man in his 60s, everyone rose. I felt the weight of every eye on me. The foreign woman, the nobody who thought she could take on a king. Jin Woo leaned back in his chair, completely relaxed, and when our eyes met across the courtroom, he smiled. Then he did something that made my blood boil. He laughed, a low, amused chuckle that said clearer than words, "You stupid, naive little girl, did you really think you could win?" His lawyers joined in with polite chuckles, shuffling their papers with exaggerated confidence. Even some people in the gallery snickered. The message was clear. This was a joke. I was a joke. Judge Park banged his gavel. "Order. This is a courtroom, not a theater." But even he looked at me with something like pity.
"Mrs. Kang."
"I see you're representing yourself. Are you certain you don't wish to retain counsel?" "I'm certain, Your Honor." Jin Woo's lead attorney, a shark named Kim Sung-ho, who'd never lost a case, stood up, buttoning his jacket with a flourish. "Your Honor, this is highly irregular. My client is a respected businessman, with a spotless reputation. These divorce proceedings are nothing but a vindictive attempt by an unstable woman to extort money from." "I'm not asking for money," I interrupted. Standing up, my voice didn't shake. I'd practiced this moment 1,000 times in my tiny apartment. "I'm asking for my freedom." Kim Sung-ho's smile was condescending. "Your Honor, perhaps we should schedule a competency hearing. Mrs. Kang is clearly not equipped to." "I passed the Korean language proficiency test last month," I said, pulling out a certificate. Topic Level 5. "I've also completed online courses in Korean family law, from Seoul National University. I know the rules of this court, I know my rights, and I'm ready to proceed." The room went quiet. Jin Woo's smile faltered slightly. Judge Park's eyebrows rose. "Very well," the judge said slowly. "Mr. Kim, you may present your opening statement." As Kim launched into a prepared speech about Jin Woo's character, and my supposed instability, I felt that calm that comes when you've got nothing left to lose. They expected me to crumble, to cry, to give up. They had no idea what I'd been preparing for. Kim Sung-ho's opening statement was a masterpiece of character assassination. According to him, I was an unstable gold digger who'd seduced a kind-hearted businessman, lived off his generosity, and was now trying to destroy him out of spite. He painted Jin Woo as the victim, a hard-working man betrayed by a conniving foreign woman. When it was my turn, I stood slowly, smoothing down my dress. My folder felt heavy in my hands, weighted with 3 months of sleepless nights and desperate research. "Your Honor," I began, "my husband's attorney is correct about one thing. This case is about character, but not mine." I pulled out my first document. "This is a bank statement from Hana Bank, dated 3 weeks ago. It shows a transfer of 50 million, one from Mr. Kang's personal account, to an account registered to a shell company in the Cayman Islands. I handed it to the clerk, who passed it to the judge. The same shell company that was named in a police investigation last year, regarding money laundering. Kim shot to his feet. Objection. That investigation was closed due to lack of evidence. The investigation was closed, I continued, after the lead detective was promoted and transferred to Busan. That detective, Park Min-jun, received a mysterious payment of 20 million, 1 week after the case was dropped. I have the bank records. I produced another document. The courtroom's energy shifted. The laughter had died completely. Jin-woo wasn't smiling anymore. He was leaning forward, whispering urgently to Kim. Judge Park studied the documents, his expression unreadable. Mrs. Kang, where did you obtain these records? Korea's financial transparency laws allow access to certain corporate records, Your Honor, and as Mr. Kang's legal wife, I had access to our joint accounts. Everything I've presented was obtained legally. It was a half-truth. Some of the records had come from a very brave bank employee who'd lost his brother to Jin Woo's organization, but the judge didn't need to know that. Your Honor, this is a divorce proceeding, not a criminal trial. Kim protested, but he sounded less confident now. These allegations are irrelevant too. These allegations are entirely relevant. I interrupted, my voice stronger now. Korean family law allows courts to consider a spouse's moral character when determining the grounds for divorce. Article 840 of the Civil Code states that a spouse may file for divorce if the other has committed an egregious act that makes the continuation of marriage unbearable. I looked directly at Jin Woo. His jaw was clenched so tight, I could see the muscle jumping. I believe running a criminal organization qualifies as egregious. You have no proof, Jin Woo said, his voice low and dangerous. You have coincidences and conspiracy theories, nothing that would hold up in. I have 12 recorded phone conversations. I said quietly, I have video footage. I have testimony from 3 of your former associates, who are currently in witness protection, and I have this. I pulled out a USB drive and held it up. This contains documents from your private safe, the one behind the painting in your office, business records, communication logs, photographs, everything the prosecutor's office would need to. This hearing is adjourned. Judge Park's gavel cracked like lightning. Mrs. Kang, Mr. Kim, my chambers. Now, as we filed out, I felt Jin Woo's eyes boring into my back. The man who'd laughed at me 2 hours ago now looked like he wanted to kill me. Maybe he did, but I'd drawn first blood, and I wasn't done yet. Judge Park's chambers smelled like old books and green tea. He sat behind his desk, studying me with new eyes, not pity anymore, but something closer to respect and wariness. Mrs. Kang, he said carefully, are you aware that if these allegations are true, your life may be in danger? I've been in danger since the day I married him, Your Honor. Kim Sung-ho jumped in, his polished demeanor cracking. Your Honor, this is extortion. She's threatening my client with false evidence too. Is it false? I asked, turning to face Jin Woo directly for the first time since we'd entered the room. Tell them it's false. Look me in the eye, and tell the judge that you're not the head of the Kang organization, that you haven't ordered murders, that everything I said is a lie. Jin Woo stared at me, his expression unreadable. For a moment, I saw something flicker across his face. Regret? Admiration? Then it was gone, replaced by cold calculation. You're making a mistake, he said quietly. You think you're brave, standing up to me like this, but you're just signing your own death warrant. The moment you leave this courthouse, the moment I leave this courthouse, copies of everything on that USB drive will be automatically sent to the Seoul Metropolitan Police, the National Intelligence Service, and 3 international news agencies. I'd rehearsed this line so many times it came out steady, confident. I've also written a detailed account of everything I know, to be released if anything happens to me. You can't threaten me anymore, Jinwoo. You can't control me, that power is gone. Your Honor, Kim interjected desperately. My client is willing to offer a generous settlement. Mrs. Kang can have the apartment, a substantial monthly allowance, her visa extended indefinitely. All she has to do is, I don't want his money, I said. I want my freedom, I want this marriage dissolved, and I want him to never contact me again. Judge Park removed his glasses, cleaned them slowly. Mrs. Kang, I'm going to be frank with you, what you're attempting is unprecedented. Even with all this evidence, the system is not designed to favor foreign women in divorce proceedings. You're facing institutional bias, cultural barriers, and if your allegations are true, a very dangerous man with unlimited resources. I know. Then why? Why not take the settlement and disappear? Why risk everything? I thought about my answer carefully. I could tell him about the baby, about wanting to give my child a chance at a normal life, but that felt too vulnerable, too exposable. Instead, I told him a different truth. Because I'm tired of being afraid, because if I run now, I'll be running for the rest of my life, and because, I looked at Jin Woo, someone has to stand up to men like him, even if that someone is just a black girl from Chicago with no connections and no money, especially then. The room was silent. Judge Park studied me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Very well, we'll reconvene tomorrow morning. Mr. Kim, I suggest you discuss settlement options with your client. Mrs. Kang, he paused. Be careful. As we left the chambers, Jin Woo grabbed my arm in the hallway. His grip was tight enough to bruise. You think you've won, he hissed in Korean. You think this is over. I pulled my arm free, my heart pounding but my voice steady. I think you're scared. For the first time since I've known you, you're actually scared. Because you can't buy me, you can't threaten me, and you can't make me disappear without proving everything I've said is true. His eyes narrowed. I loved you. I gave you everything. You loved owning me. There's a difference. I stepped back. Sign the divorce papers. Jin Woo, let me go. It's the only way this ends without destroying you completely. For a moment, I thought he might actually hit me right there in the courthouse hallway. His hand twitched, his jaw clenched, but then he stepped back, straightening his tie with jerky movements. You'll regret this, he said. I regret ever meeting you. Anything after that is an improvement. The settlement negotiations took 3 days. 3 days of tense meetings, of Kim Sung-ho trying every legal trick to minimize Jinwoo's losses, of me holding firm on my demands. No money beyond what I'd need to get back to the States. No property, no ongoing support, just my freedom, my passport, and a legally binding agreement that Jinwoo would never contact me again. And one more thing. Immunity. Full immunity for anything I might have witnessed or known about during our marriage. In exchange for my silence, I wouldn't testify against him, wouldn't provide evidence to authorities, wouldn't speak to the press. The USB drive would remain sealed, the recordings would be destroyed. It killed me to make that deal. I wanted to see him pay for everything he'd done, but I was one woman against an empire, and I was carrying his child. Sometimes survival means compromise. The final hearing was almost anticlimactic. Judge Park read the terms of our agreement into the record, asked us both if we understood and accepted the terms, and brought down his gavel with a decisive crack. The marriage between Kang Jin-woo and Amara Williams is hereby dissolved. Court is adjourned. Just like that, it was over. I stood in the courthouse steps, breathing in the soul air, feeling the weight lift from my shoulders. I was free. Actually, legally, completely free. The papers in my bag proved it. I was no longer Mrs. Kang. I was just Amara again, broke, pregnant, and alone in a foreign country, but free. Amara. I turned to find Jin-woo standing a few feet away, his bodyguards keeping a respectful distance. He looked different somehow. Smaller, maybe, or just more human. The monster mask had slipped, revealing something almost vulnerable underneath. I really did love you, he said quietly in English. In my own way. I know, I replied. That's what made it so hard to leave. The baby, he started, and my hand instinctively went to my stomach. His eyes followed the gesture, and something like pain crossed his face. "You're pregnant." It wasn't a question. Of course he knew. He probably knew before I did. "Yes. And you're keeping it?" "Yes." He nodded slowly, his hands clenching and unclenching at his sides. "If you need anything, money, protection, we won't." I forced myself to meet his eyes one last time. "Goodbye, Jinwoo. I hope someday you find a way to be better than what your father made you." I walked down those courthouse steps and didn't look back. Not when I heard him call my name. Not when I felt tears streaming down my face. Not even when I reached the street and had to stop to catch my breath, because it felt like my chest was going to explode. I'd done it. A black girl with no connections, no money, no law degree. I'd taken on a Korean mafia boss and won. Not completely, not perfectly, but I'd won my freedom. I'd won my life back. 3 months later, I was back in Chicago, working at a community legal aid center, helping other women escape dangerous situations. My apartment was tiny, my bank account was nearly empty, and my belly was growing bigger every day. But every morning I woke up without fear. Every day I made choices that were my own. And every night I talked to my unborn daughter about strength, about courage, about standing up even when everyone expects you to fall. The Korean news had been full of speculation about why I'd divorced Jinwoo, about what had really happened in that courtroom. Some called me a gold digger, others a hero, most just saw me as a curiosity, the foreign woman who dared to challenge the untouchable Kang Jinwoo. But I didn't care about their opinions anymore. I'd learned something in that courtroom, something important. The system isn't designed for people like me to win. It's designed to make us believe we can't. The trick is fighting anyway. My daughter was born on a rainy Tuesday in April. She had my eyes, my nose, and a head full of dark hair. As I held her for the first time, I made her a promise. She would grow up knowing her worth. She would grow up knowing that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stand alone against impossible odds. She would grow up knowing that her mother had faced down a monster and won. And if Jinwoo's lawyers ever came calling, if he ever tried to claim her or control us, well, I still had copies of everything. Some insurance policies are worth keeping. But for now, in my tiny Chicago apartment with my beautiful daughter sleeping in my arms, I allowed myself to simply breathe, to rest, to heal. The war was over, and against all odds, I'd survived.